Happy Tuesday, diary listeners. Okay, we're here today, and this will be a two-part podcast series, Diary Entry with Lita Edwards. And we're calling this first piece Life's Metamorphosis. So enjoy, diary listeners. I know you will. Lita is a really, really awesome lady. Welcome to the Apprenticeship Diaries, where raw meets refined.
Let's be real, we're still working on refining.
What it took, what it takes, and the stories that are made.
Join us as we learn from professionals about how their stories began.
Awesome. Welcome, Apprenticeship Diary listeners. Diary. I don't know why that word is always hard. It always slurs. Anyway, I'm here today and blessed today to be with Lita Edwards of Metamorphosis Inc. And she also is on IG as Boobs and Tattoos is like a big forefront of the shop, mostly centered around mastectomies and scar cover up. In fact, we just met at Paradise, and you did a whole seminar about reviving people and covering up their scars and things like that. So instant kind of acknowledgement of the healing in tattoos, which is cool.
Yeah.
Thank you for being
You're
here.
welcome.
Yeah,
It's a pleasure.
I'm really excited.
I am too. I'm glad we crossed paths up there. It was a really good show, and we had a few opportunities to kind of chitty chat. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, you're a cool lady. And I have to mention this because it was just such a cool thing that I think your listeners should know. Right on your shoulder is this mouse that is just so evocative. It's like, but it filled in a reference for me. It's Popo Gijo, right?
Topo Gijo.
Popo Gijo. And
Topo
I've heard
Gijo.
of it, but I've never seen this infamous character, well, not infamous, this classic nostalgic character, and now I have a reference, so I might have to like take a picture, a screenshot or something just to show him.
That's fine. I can send you another one close up if you'd like.
I would. That'd be so cool. That way it fills it in for everyone else, so if they hear about this, they can reference it. But I just thought he was such a cute character just sitting on your shoulder. It's awesome. We'll give the listeners a visual so that when they see and listen, they can, have that and look up on their own. But that was pretty cool. So, how long have you been tattooing at this point?
14 years, going on 15 years next spring.
Right on. So you now was a streamline, like start tattooing and then go, because I had two apprenticeships, and I combine the years to 15, but it was like start in like 2004 and work to 2005 and then come back at 2009, 10. So I had like a gap of like experience. But did you just come in at like around 2009-ish, 2010?
Yeah, it's for tattooing. Yes, I did. For the industry in itself, always been into tattooing, of course, but yeah, I kind of got thrown in there. It's been a really interesting journey for me, but that's when I ultimately started tattooing. I was 32 when I chose to seriously get into the industry with it.
Very cool. I came in around 29 seriously, and I was told how late in the game I was.
Yeah.
I was like I was like, dude, I feel like this is for everybody at every age. Like, hello.
You know what I love about it? The fact that I'm not hating the fact that I came into it older, because for many, many years prior to that, I worked in so many artistic and design industries that really honed what I brought to the table as a tattoo artist versus not having that knowledge. I'm educated in landscaping, I'm educated in CAD and programming and design and architecture and interior stuff, like I've done that for years, painting, stuff like that. So it's been a fun journey. I'm really glad that it happened later in life.
Me as well. I think that there's quite the ownership of who I am at that point too, and what my boundaries are.
Hmm.
I mean, of course, I found them through tattooing too,
Hmm.
but I knew a lot of my boundaries professionally in when I entered tattooing, and I think that's good too, because there's a lot of abuse that can happen when you come in young.
Yeah. That literally just ran through my mind. I didn't come into it as a sex object for the guys in the studio, you know. I personally, I came right out of the hills of Tennessee, not in a major city or anything. So it was, we might have had two shops in town, you know, the picking of where you were going to go and what you were going to do were extremely thin. So you had to have that tough skin and just put up with a lot of bullshit.
Yeah, man.
There was
Well,
only two females in town, and I was one of them.
wow. Wow.
Hmm.
Yeah, that was I feel like that was my beginning as well. It was very male dominated.
Hmm.
Getting less so in my second round of apprenticeship, but my first round was like in a biker shop in Kentucky, so very much so
Hmm.
that picture.
Yeah, you get it. You get it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally,
I mean, it
totally.
was fun. I'm not going to deny the fact that it had its own character and upbringing, and even in that, I love the journey and the struggle that I had to go through. Just
Yeah,
as a woman and being an independent artist in a still a very male dominated industry is feels pretty powerful.
yeah. Well,
Hmm.
and I think that I I don't know, just in general, I feel like a very dude lady myself. Like I don't know, like I like I like I like fart jokes, and I like the
Oh my
things that
God.
guys like. Like I just think it's
No.
hilarious at times.
It's you know you do have to have a very diverse personality, I guess, and get along with the best of them, as I always say.
Yeah, I mean, if nothing else, just be like, oh my God, and like not take it too
Hmm.
seriously, even if you don't like it, just be like, whatever, man. Like,
Yeah, you can't take anything too seriously in a shop, honestly. Like I tell my staff, I said, look, we are going to spend more time with each other than you do your own wife or husband. So we have to make this work if we have to call in a therapist type thing. And
yeah.
yeah, we do.
Well,
We
and
all
for
have
the
a therapist.
yeah, well, and for the work that you do too, I mean, you help other people bring back some joy and some empowerment in their life too. So that's something that you've been able through your own journey. It sounds like be really able to gift to other people through that, because they're kind of overwhelmed by the very visceral reality of how serious their life has gotten out of their out of
Mm-hmm.
their command and control. So to bring them back, you have to have some levity, you have to have some joy and invoke that light again and give hope. So that's
Yes.
good.
Yeah, you do. And I think I'm going to circle back to the fact that, you know, getting into it later in life, you come with things that you can relate to them with. You have experiences. You've done things out there that that you can relate to them on a personal level, which is golden in
Yeah,
building those relationships with your client.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, and you can stand in those spaces. I know that it was the same for me in hair too. I do two apprenticeships, and I did one really young, and then I came back years later. I'm thick, man. Like I have to learn the hard way all the time. But
Hey,
I
it's all
but I
right.
I know, right? I just found a better command over the space after I'd lived a little bit. And you can't really confront these biting issues that adults grapple from a point of youth. Honestly, it's a little intimidating sometimes unless you've really lived.
Hmm.
And I hadn't. So I had a much more command over my, not to say the authority, but like I could hold my ground where I needed
Hmm.
to in the profession and guide people in a good way,
Yeah.
whereas it intimidated me before. So I definitely understand that. It's
Yeah.
good. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
When I was challenged that I had come in late and then I had to catch up, I was like, ah, man, I'm on my own journey. It's cool.
Yeah.
It's whatever. I've
Yeah.
always been a late bloomer.
Yeah. You know, it all makes sense though. You get a decade in, you turn around and look back and you're had to be
Hmm.
that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Well, And what did that look like? So you decided that you wanted to get into tattooing. You said you'd been in it for a while, but like, how did you determine
I,
that?
all right. Okay, so I have to backtrack. Um, I've had a love of tattooing since I was very young. I had a couple stepbrothers. They were bikers, always showing up with these amazing new tattoos, big, bold, traditional pieces, daggers, roses, skulls, that kind of stuff. And I would just sit and stare at them for like hours because I was so obsessed with the fact that you could ink on skin. Fast forward, turn 18, gonna go get my first professional tattoo. Had a couple of homemade ones by that time. And the man that, again, Tennessee, not many choices. So we would drive like an hour to this other town to go to the shop. Um, Found the artist, did a great job, stayed with him for like 4 years, right? You go back, same guy, because same thing, or get same stuff. And I guess at that time, like I said, I was 18, 19 years old. He offered me an apprenticeship. And I really thought that was an amazing thing. And I was like, oh my God, this is like it, like that little light bulb went off inside. And then he's like, yeah, man, it'll be $800. I'm like, we're in the middle of the sticks. I'm 18 years old. Who's got $800? I need beer money this weekend. And so I passed
Right?
on it. I passed on it. And I actually took a break, went on, met somebody, went, established a life, different town, so on and so forth. Moved out of the country, was coming back, didn't want to. Ended up back in a town I didn't want to be in. And got upset one day, had some grocery money. I'm like, fuck this. I'm just going to go get a tattoo. This was when I was 32 years old. I hated where I was in life. Nothing was going right. And I walk into this shop, different town. I hadn't seen him in, I don't even know, it was at least a decade or longer, right? Never stayed in communication. And I walked into the shop, and there sat my very first professional tattoo artist who offered me that apprenticeship. And I started a half sleeve with him. I was like, oh my God, like I can't believe it's you. So we're catching up on the past. And ironically, he offered it to me a second time. And this was, 14 years later. And the moment the words left his lips, that voice spoke to me. I've only had kind of a voice speak to me on like 3 different occasions in my life. And this was one of those times. And he said, opportunities like this don't come twice in a lifetime. I
Wow.
didn't have to question it, and he's like, yeah, man, I'd love to have you. It's $5,000. I'm like, happened to $800 the last time we talked about this, and he said, he literally looked at me, he's like, inflation. I was like, okay, all right. Well, still, again, I was using my grocery money and I didn't have any money at the time, but I had somebody in my life that I was telling this to, and he said, you know what? I really want to see you make something of yourself. I'm going to give you this money. I don't expect it in return. Just promise me that you'll do a contract and you'll make it. And I said, okay. And
Wow.
off we went. Now the apprenticeship sucked. If you want to go into that, we can, but that's to answer that question.
Well, did you get a contract?
I did. I made him sign a contract with me. Paid him
Okay.
in full, $5,000, had him meet me at the bank, had it notarized. I wrote the contract myself, so that I could tie him in. We're in the middle of the country. What I didn't know, a lot of changes took place with him over a decade, and he seemed cool, and I was tattooing him and stuff, but I didn't know his personal life. So when I came into the apprenticeship, literally within the first week, he's a crackhead, and he has a big drug problem. You know how that shit goes. There was 3 other guys in the studio tattooing. They all 3 were apprentices. So he was flipping apprentices at 5,000 a pop. You know how that goes. And about 9, 10 months in, he'd have a reason to fire him, and off they'd go. And it's a non-refundable fee. So he was out here just dealing and dealing. Well, I was under contract. I had nowhere else to go, and I heard that voice. You can't take away the voice. At the end of the day, you can't take away the voice. So I stuck with it, and I held him. I held him to his word, and there was a lot of battles in there. He came in one day and he's like, I know you want a tattoo, but I need some money, and ain't nobody going to be getting no work, and I'm just going to cut you back to 1 day a week. I'm like, here's this piece of paper. You sign it has timelines on there. And 9 months into my apprenticeship, he was closing the studio. And I remember me and the other guys, anything we learned at that time was we just fed off of each other. You know, he was completely against mags. This was when mags first hit the industry. Oh my God, to get them to switch over to mags was like, it just wasn't happening. I think he still tattoos with a 14 round shader today. And
God, God help his clients.
I know.
That's rough.
It was, but he was a really good technical artist. His stuff healed well, never scarred. His color was solid. I mean, you couldn't beat the work. But so anyway, it was just up to us 4 apprentices, and I don't know. We did what we could do. 9 months in, they decided they were finishing their apprenticeships. I still had 3 to go. They all left. They left me alone. He said, "I'm closing shop." And so I literally called the health inspector and I said, "I want to have a private meeting with you." And so I went and I met with the health inspector and I said, "This is what's going on in the studio. This is the contract that I signed and this is my obligation." And he's not willing to own up to that. I'm not saying I'm beautiful, but I'm not ugly either. And the other places around wouldn't hire me because they said I was competition. You know, if a woman come in, she's going to feel comfortable with the woman. If a guy comes in, he's going to want the pretty girl, you know, type thing. So you couldn't get work out there. Again, we're in the middle of the country. People ain't got money. You had to fight for it. You're good if you could pay rent that month. And so I just fought against it the whole way. And the health inspector, he says, "You know what? I've watched you for the last 9 months. I know Larry personally. I've worked with him for years. I'm going to sign off on your license and I wish you well." So I finished my apprenticeship in 9 months. I couldn't get a job anywhere. I even went up to Nashville, the big city. Nobody would hire me. You know, I'm just a kid out of the sticks. So I said, "Fuck it." And I opened my own studio and the biggest growing location in town with the most income per capita. And I've never looked back. Never missed a rent payment.
Wow.
I had determination.
Yes, you did. Well, and you know, it's one of those things like when your life gets to a point where it's about as low as you ever want it to be. It's really only road is up. So,
yeah. There's nothing else going on. Why not fight for it? I had something to fight for. Other than that, I didn't have anything to fight for, you know.
Yeah.
And I heard the voice that I knew this was to be followed, regardless, come hell or high water. I was supposed to follow it, and I did.
Right.
Yeah.
So just a question because in Maryland here, there's no regulation. So it is described to me because there's a license obviously in Tennessee. What was the statutes of that license? How did that have to work?
So it's interesting because at the time, and I don't know if it still is today, I've been gone for quite some time, but at the time, we were the highest regulated state for tattooing in the nation, literally. So when you started into a studio, you and your mentor literally had to go down and sign up with the direct health inspector, and you got what said apprenticeship license. And you didn't get tattoo certification license until you completed that year and your mentor said, "Okay, I'm releasing this person." Otherwise, the health department wouldn't sign off on it. And come the end of the year, your apprenticeship license is null and void and you start all over again. So it was pretty regulated there when it came to that. But Kentucky next door had zero laws. You could just go down, pay $50 at the courthouse and have a license. So a lot of people that didn't make it so much so in Tennessee would cross over to Kentucky because they could just go ahead and get it regardless. Work up there a few years, and as long as you could show 2 to 3 years tax return, you could come and just get your tattoo certification in Tennessee. You didn't have to go through the apprenticeship program.
Wow. Now in the apprenticeship program, did they just regularly stop into the shop, or did you guys have to submit hours? Like, was there an actual program?
No.
Okay.
No, everything was left up to whoever you signed on for. You could get something, you could get nothing. It was everywhere across the board. The fact was, is that person willing to say you've completed in a year?
Got you. So what did you learn beyond just how to shade with rounds.
We actually learned with mags, you know, everything was coils. Rotaries didn't exist at that time. And it was so weird. Thank God I had the three dudes in the shop with me, you know, um, because between the three of us, and this is going back, let me just say, folks, there was no Google. You know what I mean? We didn't have iPads. We did everything by hand. Don't fuck the stencil up. You don't want to do
Yep.
it twice.
Conserve that paper.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but that was, I think, made me a more sound artist today because I know all those tricks of the trade.
Absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
and you can think ahead a little bit more than your average, person, because there is that, like you said, you can't mess up. So it makes you be sure of the movements that you're making when you make them.
Yeah. The guys fortunately had like other tattoo artist friends and stuff. So they would go and get little tricks and bring them back, and we'd all gather in a room and try it out and stuff. So that's kind of how we learned. I fake it until you make it.
Yeah.
I jumped and then just grew my wings on the way down, as that saying says.
Yeah. I mean, that was that leap of faith, and also that voice, like, just
Yeah.
like, hey man, get busy, get busy. Get busy one way or the other.
Yeah.
No, I love it. That's awesome. As far as the machines, you did say coils. Do you remember your first machine?
Yes, I do. It was passed on to me by him. I still have it today. I refuse to come off of it. It was one of his personal ones. It has his initials on it, and
Wow.
it's kind of cool. It wasn't really a name brand of anything because he liked drugs, and so the equipment wasn't expensive, but it got the job done, you know. And he literally within like the first month, I had to break them down and put them back together and make them run and all that stuff. And so I was able to take a crappy machine and kind of juice it up enough to get the job done. And
That's awesome. That's
yeah,
really cool.
yeah.
Did you have to do any soldering or anything like that?
He, you know what? He was getting out of it right at the tail end, and that was something we really didn't cover. It is knowledge I would love to have,
Yeah.
for sure. But I think once 9 months in, when I started my own studio, it was just full steam at that point forward. So
Yeah.
going back and
You got to
having
make
that
money
time,
first.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I would work 12 and 14 hours a day.
Mm,
Excuse me. When I own the own, when you own your own shop, you do what it takes to keep the doors open. And until the last person was done, I wouldn't leave,
yeah.
because again, I was determined to make it, and there was not going to be a no anywhere.
So part of your tattoo apprenticeship was like a full crash course in business ownership right away.
Exactly.
Bravo.
Thank you.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
When we met at Paradise, like I was doing an interview, and you were on the panel, and we were, you were basically talking about what you look for in a person to guest spot. And I was admitting how terrified I am for like this and part of it is I have a very comfy position of a lot of options, which is great. It's a blessing, but it also can lead to paralysis. I think sometimes when you just have no choice, you just make a choice and you just do it. But it's I really admire that, like I definitely wanted to guest spot for you now just to kind of see what you've created and crafted, and see what that first shop like has evolved into. And I'm sure you have just a litany of things that you have learned.
Yes. Yeah.
So
I'm
what
still learning today. I mean, I'm not going to lie. When I was at Paradise, I'm teaching a course, but I'm also taking a course.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I
Yeah.
think that's the humility of, just I think being a good person, being a good artist, being everything, like it
Mhm.
just never thinking that you have the full picture. You keep
Yeah.
moving your chair around so that you can see something from all sides, you know?
Yeah. Yes.
Very cool. Um, so you opened the shop. It was in a busy district. This is going to go off of my normal asking just because this is definitely not a normal situation. Um,
Not.
what did that look like? So now you own a business. What was kind of I guess if you can break it down for me, because there's a lot that goes into that. You pick a location and
Mhm.
um at this point you get to craft what wasn't afforded you. So what did you want to create, I guess, when you went into this?
Um, I wanted to create a place for women because I was so shunned by the guys in the industry. And I moved it to the big city so that, options, hopefully, of both artists and clientele were much more diverse and than what we were given out in the sticks. And I did everything I could in the beginning to advertise. I mean, it's the journey was so divine and everything. I had this idea that I wanted to create this place, and I wanted to be, one of the top studios in Nashville and stuff like that. And when you first come in and you're like a 9 month, 1 year, 2 year artist, you think you fucking know it all, and you don't know anything really. You barely have a few toes in the water at that point. But I didn't have a choice, like I said, so I literally had to do it. I didn't have a choice but to do it, so I did it. And I just wanted to create an environment that was feminine. It was beautiful. It was edgy. I had women artists. I pitched to the community. Um, I had female artists, showcase their artwork in there and stuff like that. So I sort of went that direction with it. I was sort of all over the place and trying to figure out what would work. And
Right.
ultimately, I was a piercer, so we had piercing too, and all that stuff. But the vision was it was minimal at that point. I think first and foremost, my goal was to have a place where women felt comfortable.
Right. Yeah, I got slung the same rhetoric when I was around guys, and I was already tattooing and all of that stuff. This big, um, yeah, just observance of my sex, that was odd to me because they're like, oh, you get, like you said, women want to be touched by you, men want to be touched by you. It's like you have this edge, and and I never was cognizant of those things. Like, when people ask me the question, what does it feel like to be a female tattoo artist? I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know what it is to be a male tattoo artist. And I can tell you one thing, if I could leave my boobs and vagina at home, I would. They
Mm-hmm.
don't really serve me in that place, to be honest
Mm-hmm.
with you. They just, I have to pee constantly, and like, I don't like that. And my boobs are sometimes in people's hands without me understanding, the ergonomic. I'm just trying to get to what I need to. So for me, it was always like, I didn't like that was even brought into the space, because for me,
Mm-hmm.
and I think like you, it was like, I just wanted to do the profession. Like, I just wanted
Mm-hmm.
to do good art, do good service. And I like that was something that you were trying to create, and definitely from a very integral space. How was that received in your area?
Beautifully.
I'll bet.
Um, Beautifully.
Those men kind of damned themselves, didn't they?
You know what? I mean, I'm not opposed to men. Like I had nothing but men to input into my brain and give me their knowledge or words of advice or whatever. And some of the greatest, I don't even know what the word is, sayings that have stuck with me through the years, as an artist came from men. But it was just, I think a lot of my problems with it is it was with the clients. You would come in, flirt with the clients, make clients feel uncomfortable. You couldn't, they couldn't do a nipple piercing that they needed help type thing. I mean, it was constant like that. So I really wanted to get away from that. And when I did what I did in Tennessee and in Nashville, I launched it and advertised it as an all female studio. And took off. I mean, there was nothing like that that existed at the time. I've been interviewed by three major television production companies,
Nice.
and they always wanted to do a show, but we never had enough drama in the shop. And they even did, they came in and interviewed everybody in the studio to get a feel for the stuff. And they just came back and said, you don't have enough drama. And I said, if it takes drama to put me on television, which was not something I was even looking for. It's that they were looking and contacted me. I said, I'm not going to do it for you. I won't ruin the integrity of my team or the creativity that goes on around here, because that is first and foremost the importance. And people just started flocking to me from the day I opened. I don't know if most people do this. Join the Chamber of Commerce, have the
Oh,
grand
wow.
opening, ribbon cutting ceremony and stuff.
Yeah.
I have 50, 75 people in my studio. I didn't know who any of these people were. And I was like, what the? But you put that face on and you act. And I remember looking at my friend at that time, and I was like, "This is my very first day opening a shop. I'm 9 months as an artist. I have no fucking clue what I'm doing. I can barely tattoo script, right?" And I look at her and I'm like, "Oh my God, I don't know what to do now." And she's like, "You tattoo."
Yeah.
And that was it. So somebody walked up and said, "Hey, I want to get your first tattoo," and it was a set of lips on his wrist, and
I love it.
yeah, I know, right?
That's
So
awesome.
rocked
That's
it from
great.
there.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
usually ask what your first tattoo is, but I kind of like that you can tell me what your first is, but that one's an integral one because that's the first tattoo you did in your shop. Hey, diary listeners. Well, 'tis the season, and I got just a few friends that I want to shout out before we get on with the rest of our podcast. First is something that took a reemergence. I actually did this huge, like, Hot Ones kind of competition kind of style thing with friends of mine, recorded the whole thing, never posted it. It required me doing some video editing, and I gotta be honest with you guys, that's a lot for me right now, so I didn't do it, and I feel bad because within it was shouting out a really great company. It's Tennessee Hot Sauces, and it's a Tennessee Hot Sauce Company. It's a great company. They sell amazing hot sauce. In fact, Rico's been trying to have a lot of hot wing nights, and he's just loving these hot sauces. Quite frankly, we had some left over from when we did this competition or this night at our house, and lately he's been digging back into them. He's like, man, these are good. They're so good. So they're handcrafted hot sauces, and from what I understand, they also have good beef jerky as well. You can find them at T, as in Thomas, tnhotsauceco.com, and order some hot sauces today. So if you know a really, fervent hot sauce fan, or somebody that you know that just likes that little extra flavor with everything, this would be a great gift for them for this holiday season. And little known fact is that you'll be helping a smaller company, somebody that this is their side hustle and a passion. These are all very, very fine-tuned hot sauces that is very integral. I think artisanal is what they call it. So anyway, go get your Tennessee hot sauce. You will not regret it, and I think it'll make an awesome gift. Thanks, diary listeners. Okay, next on the list is my good friend Tara. She's actually been featured on the podcast. Her name is Tara K. Bell, but her Instagram is Tara Kendal Creations. So definitely follow her there. And what you'll find there is an awesome link to her Etsy shop. She is selling fantastic creations on Etsy. She has a line of shirts. I believe she's selling all different kinds of things, notebooks, bags. I just got one of her bags that she's selling there. I'm sorry, diary listeners, this is all over the place, but go shop her inventory. She's got fantastic things with her artwork on it. I bought the bag that had her orchids on it, and she's got a flavor for everybody. But it's very what would I describe it as? Well, first of all, I know that her artwork is super integral. She takes hours and hours and hours. She does all of this artwork by hand. She, I mean, it's impressive, guys, because if she doesn't get it right, she scraps the whole thing and redoes it. So you know that you're getting really, really high quality of artwork from somebody who takes what they do very seriously and with a lot of care. And she has some holiday features, specials, if you're kind of more of the witchy, holistic, I don't know, spiritual kind of person. She's got you covered, but there's a lot of really beautiful seasonal things right now. I think a big one would be her reindeer that she has featured that's gorgeous. And she also has a beautiful mistletoe star that if you really like to show how much you love this holiday, I think it's best if you can adorn it, wear it, have a shirt, but also a beautiful thing is supporting a local artist who is out there. She's blessing the world with her craft. She's enacting the gifts that she's been given. And when I tell you that she puts so much love into these things, I cannot say that enough. So go to Tara Kendal Creations. It's the same thing on Etsy if you were to look her up there. But go shop her inventory and know that you're giving back to somebody who's a little person and who would really appreciate some love. Thank you. And know, Tara, that I love you. Happy holidays, everyone. All right, last shout out for the day. So coming up after Lita's podcast, which is awesome, I actually just interviewed a friend that I've had for a very long time, actually, Byron Brooks. He's a comedian in the local Maryland area. And I wanted to have everybody go and start following him. The more you follow him, the more he gets seen by booking agencies and things like that. You can find him on IG at Byron Brooks, that's Brooks Comedy. Please go give him some love. He'll be performing in North Carolina this New Year's, so keep cheering him on. The more people that follow him, and plus, who doesn't need a good laugh? I mean, this time of year, I think it's really hard for us to all hold on to our sanity and remember that life is ridiculous, but that's why you gotta laugh. Thank you, diary listeners. Back to our podcast. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I don't even
The
know if
first
it's
one I
necessary.
did, it was a pot leaf on my mentor's arm. And he made me do it lineless in soft gray shade with a pot leaf in negative space. As if this is my first tattoo ever.
That's
For the
hard.
machine. I know.
Yes. Oh my God.
First thing he threw at me. It was great.
How'd you do?
I think it was kind of half-assed, really. I don't know. It was. He kept yelling at me, "It's too dark. You're getting it too dark." I'm like,
It's like, I don't even know what I'm doing, man. How long did it take? Like, because this first
like
tattoo,
2 hours.
yeah, they take
2 hours.
forever.
And it was like, this big, probably.
Like an inch by inch.
Yeah.
Dude, they take forever. I remember John coming into my room being like, dude, are you still doing this? And I was like, it was like 6 hours for what should have been a 2-hour tattoo. And I was like,
yeah. And I'm not using anything bigger than 14 shader. Don't forget that.
Yes. Well, and for that kind of shading.
washing.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Yeah, that's rough, man. That's rough. Was the lips better?
They were actually. They weren't as nerve-wracking. Oh, I don't know. I have to say they were both pretty nerve-wracking. It was a first and a first for real. So
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. What did the lips, did they have color?
Oh, of course they were red or pink or what the hell ever color they wanted. So
that's awesome. I love it. I love that. That's so cool. So how many artists did you have right away, or did it just start out with you, and then like how did that look?
There was 2 of us, and
Okay.
yeah, she was with me for a hot minute, and then she ended up stealing, and then that had to go to the wayside. But I had several artists kind of come and go during that time. But what I quickly found out is it's not easy to staff a studio at all.
No, that's part of my fear.
Yes. So now I'm working in a town that's, 95% male. And I think I'm going to hire all these artists. And guess what? No man really wanted to work for me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, in the few women that I did have, um, majority of them kind of got intimidated or something. I did have some good ones. I'm not going to lie. Everybody's just kind of on their own personal journey, but yeah, I rocked that for a while, and I listened to the wind, and then the wind blew, and I went and did something else.
Yeah. I do find that has been my experience too, is like and I don't even like to default to it, because I'd like to think that to the whole, like, people want to be touched more and served more by women than men. I do feel like in terms of leadership, at least that I've found, I've encountered a lot of intimidation and lack of wanting to listen by both women
Hmm.
and men.
Hmm.
And it's I feel it's kind of a hindrance too. So there's a book that I read, Cheryl Stamborn, I believe, or Stam might be brutalizing, but it's um stand up. Is it stand up or um Cheryl Sanborn, and it's oh, I might have to cut this out because and repaste it in, but I'll have to look up the actual name. But it's a book about how she worked as a lead in Facebook, and she basically, just encouraging women to embrace certain parts of themselves, even within that space. And she said that working there, they were actually pretty accepting of her, even going through motherhood and things like that, and dealing with what that actually yields in a lot of ways. So, but that's not. I always felt hindered to have children, from my experience. So I decided not to. That was
Hmm.
something that just in pursuing my passion so much, I chose not to. Um, it didn't feel like it was very accessible for both avenues, honestly.
I have to agree.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
never had children,
yeah.
thank God.
Yeah, I can honestly say that for myself too. I think I'm a much better person and a much better um, gift to the world the way that I took it. I
Yeah,
don't think it would have been as good otherwise.
yeah, me either. Plus, it takes so much away from trying to focus on a career that is really a lifestyle. It's not an 8 to 5 job. You either live it, breathe it, sleep it, and shit it, or you shouldn't be in it.
Yeah.
Personally, because it really takes that much. And that's the beauty of it. I think most anybody that does it, we're doing it because it's our passion. So it's not a job. We're willing to do that. I think anybody that gets in it and thinks it's going to be easy and they could just work a few hours a day and make a bunch of money, it's they're sadly now working in construction and at Walmart. But
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for real.
yeah,
Well,
yeah,
and the to the kid point, I mean, I honestly too, the part of that too is I haven't really picked partners that really help uplift me. And there might be some credit in my personal journey as to I do find that I emasculate people quite a bit, and I don't mean to, but I'm not an easy person to lead.
yeah,
I'm not a blind follower.
yeah.
So so that's
I
why
don't think a lot of women probably in this industry is because it does take the balls.
mhm.
We didn't get here by just following the leader.
Right. Well, and like you said, the passion, so much of it, art has been my first sanctuary, like that's like a place I go to atone. And I feel like there's a jealousy for that too, how much we sacrifice to that.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that kind of gets in the way sometimes when you have a partner who, um, at least for me, has been, you know, uh, wanting me to focus more on, I guess, the relationship. And for me, it's like, well, the relationship should help booster what we want. And what I want is more of this. So if you take away that, you're
Yeah.
taking away my soul.
Yeah.
I'm not me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. That's how it is.
Hmm.
Yeah. When that happens, you gotta go. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of what happened.
I think too, though, I've had the beautiful opportunity of helping to raise so many children. And now my tattoo children are really like my children.
Yeah,
I have three, and I've put everything into them.
that's really
I
cool.
can't give them any more. And they're all phenomenal artists. They're really come a long way in a very quick time, and I'm very proud of that.
I'm
But
glad that
not
you,
having one personal kid at home to have to focus on really frees us up, I think, to focus on so many children, whether it's in the industry or not. There's so much more we have to offer, I feel, to other kids like that. So I have many children, none of them that I had to birth, thank God.
yeah, I agree with you. I totally agree with you. It's kind of one of the reasons why I started this podcast was because, I only have one apprentice that was successful, but
Hmm.
like you, I do think that there's part of that journey that was very, if not the whole thing, a very call to motherhood and things like that, and just kind of looking at it from that kind of perspective. And I agree. I think that that's been kind of my window into something that I chose on the birthing
Hmm.
part of it to kind
Hmm.
of, you know, go into this space. And I also found that like people like you and people like me, I had so many mentors outside of my parents that
Hmm.
really helped, push me through, that I wanted, this is a kind of an homage to them in certain ways of just being that
Yeah.
person, like that in between person that kind of helps you bring you back and steer you and give you little things that maybe don't come or that you don't even listen to from your family.
Yeah. Yeah. I do have, because my wife is reminding me over here, I do have I have a stepson. She has a son.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
yes, but I do have a stepson. I came in when he was 16, so I got all of his experimental years.
Oh, lovely.
He's a really good boy. I can't
That's awesome.
complain at all. He's a good kid.
Oh, I'm glad. I'm glad. Yeah, I've never dated anybody that had a kid, and that's something that I haven't experienced. I'm open to it, but I'm very opinionated, so I don't know if they'd be open to it.
You know what? If they're not. That's not going to be the right relationship for you. That's the way to take that.
I'd have to agree. I'd have to
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and uh, so you have apprenticed three people and given them your all. What are some things that, because all parents, whether you've birthed them or your step parent, all parents try to give better than what they got. So what were some things that you made sure to do?
Uh, as in, define that a little bit more. Like,
Sure. Um, did the contract thing lead into your teaching them? Did you charge them for an apprenticeship? How did you receive them and how did that look
okay,
like?
all right,
Yeah.
how they got into it with me. I
Yeah.
did actually. I mean, that was the way I was brought in. 2 years into my career, I'm still a baby, had my business, a year and 3 months at this point. And of course, I mean, I had a great studio. It was thriving. I was making money and paying the bills, but I wasn't learning. I didn't really
Yeah.
have anybody better than me sitting there. I didn't have anybody a lot of people in town to go and learn from. And that's when I came across Paradise Tattoo Gathering. It was in a magazine back when print was in. And it was in a magazine and I saw it and was just like, I have to go to this. I didn't know there was this education conference. And so I went and I was so in love because I learned so much from that. I finally had a place to really learn. And I remember Teresa Sharp being on the women's panel that time and having so much to say with her apprenticeship. I heard her story and stuff, and it was just so inspiring and everything. Um, so coming back around to your question with my apprentices and stuff, I took all of that into consideration in how I came into it and what I learned from other artists. So I have made them do the apprenticeship duties. No, they're not scrubbing toilets with a toothbrush, and I don't make them, excuse me, do things earn their way, so to speak. The things, what I want them to do in earning their way is pretty much always pertaining to tattooing in
Yeah.
itself. Um, but so I charge them. I started out when I started with my first one, it was $5,000. And my next one, all three of them have been 5,000. Now I'll go up probably to 75 from, I don't know. I'm not really even in the market to take on another apprentice at this point because I'm getting ready to become a tattoo grandmother. My first apprentice is taking her first apprentice. It's a girl. We're so excited.
That's so awesome. That's so awesome.
Yes, and it's amazing. And part of her apprenticeship will be a photo shoot with all of us holding our new baby. So that'll be fun. It's things like that,
Oh man, that's
that they have
awesome.
to suffer out. But so yeah, I took them at 5,000. They had no idea on doing a contract or anything, and I'm like, we're going to put this under contract because I feel like there's this mindset that if you feel it's legit, it's legit. It's not just out here vocal in the air. Anything can change tomorrow. I honestly wanted them to know that I was committed to them enough to sign the contract. It wasn't really about them being committed to me. It was about me being committed to them. So that was one thing that I did with them, and it just started. I mean, I did the same thing, I guess. And so I make them start on the front end. You don't really tattoo until you're like 6 months in. You've got to prove yourself on paper. You got to learn the whole scheduling aspect and stuff. And tattooing is the last part of the job. That's the fun part. But you got all the bullshit up to that point to deal with, and we learned that first.
Yeah,
So
I
yeah.
agree.
But I do charge them. I make them do. They have to. I give them a project, I guess, a task, a drawing challenge, and they have to come back with this drawing, and show me that they can do this talent. And I interrogate them quite a bit.
When they come to you asking for an apprenticeship, has it looked a whole bunch of different ways, or have you did it come about the same way as it happened with you, where they came in for a tattoo and you know how did that go? Because I went hunting for an apprenticeship. I went door to door and like had a portfolio and wanted to
hmm
show it and all that
hmm
good
So
stuff.
it's so funny because all three are unique in their own story
Okay.
and how they came in. So my first one, her mother was a client, and I'm
Oh.
tattooing her one day, and she's telling me about her daughter. And this was before I opened the studio. I worked for another shop. I'd been there for years, and she starts telling me her daughter is an artist and wants to be a tattoo artist. And you're tattooing. So I mean, every mother's daughter is an artist to some degree. I mean, whatever,
Right.
type stuff. And she's like, oh, what would it take to get an apprenticeship? And I said, well, I was at that point in my life, I really needed help. I'm running. At that time, I was, 2 to 3 months consistent in advance for years,
Mhm.
and was like, I really need some help. I'm tired of spinning my wheels. And up until that point, I was able to commit 23 hours of my day to my career. And right about that time, I think it was, or just before, I met whom is now my wife. And for the first time, literally in my career, I didn't want to be in the studio. And so it was really hanging up on things that I was getting done. So when she said that, I was looking at her and I was like, okay, I really need some help. If she's an artist, tell her to come see me. We'll figure it out from there. So she called me like a month later. It was so, she was
Hey.
so swift, about it. I'd forgotten about it. I was like, whatever. And so we met that day. She didn't have much of a portfolio, and I was like, well, I'm going to give you a drawing challenge. I didn't have any other options. I wasn't going to advertise it.
Yeah.
And I kind of ride on that. If it's to be, it will be. Anytime I've ever needed someone or hired someone, I've never until here recently, I think after we opened the shop, I didn't run any ads or nothing. I just, people are led to me when they're supposed to be there. I've honestly believed that. So it's very little effort on my part. And I just keep my ears and my eyes open. And when you know when they're there.
Yeah.
So she met with me, did the drawing challenge. I said, come up here. I was working in a shop. We had 8 artists going in there. And I was like, you got to come in like any other artist would be here. Even though I'm your mentor,
Yeah.
I still have, obligations in a studio to abide by just the same. Within less than maybe close to a year, I was coming on the outs with that studio because the mastectomy and the scar side of my career was really, really taken off. And it was one huge open studio. And a lot of things started going to the wayside. I started losing the ability to control my environment when it came to what I was doing.
Yeah.
And so it was just in the end, it was just a matter of, I just outgrown. It was time. And when it was time, it was time. And I had her, she opened the shop with me. She's still with me. It's coming up on 6 years.
Oh,
And yeah,
that's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah. And then my
That's
next one, Kaiser, he came in. I didn't need anybody at the time. I actually had another apprentice and I had to let him go for making too many serious mistakes and not even thinking that that was wrong type
Jeez.
thing.
God
So
bless Kaiser for coming, man.
yeah, well, I had that guy, and then Kaiser showed up. I'm like, oh, I don't have room for you, whatever, whatever. And he goes on. Lo and behold, I had to let this guy go. All of a sudden, one day, he calls me up on the phone. He says, "Hey, I'm not really happy with the shop. Can I come talk to you?" I'm like, "Sure." And he was 9 months into his apprenticeship over there. It had been 9 months since I'd seen him or talked to him. And he came in and we just kicked it off that day. I said, yeah, sure. I'll give you a chance. He was still an apprentice. I said, you come on over. And so he did. Well, they took on another apprentice at the same time. And she was still there, but they fired her like a week later because they were so close. They were like brother and sister. How apprentices are, brother,
Yeah.
sister. They'll forever be together through their careers. And so I took him on. Great, amazing decision. He's still with me today. It's coming up on 3
Aw.
years. We started all over with his apprenticeship because they didn't teach him anything. And a couple of weeks later, they fired her. And he's like, oh, my friend, she's not, this, and this. And I have another sister shop that have been friends of mine, very dear friends of mine for quite some time. And so we ping off each other a lot. And so I called him up and I said, hey, I know you guys got a position. I got her an apprenticeship over there. So that
Nice.
worked out pretty well. And now we're like all one big happy family. And that's how he came about. Then Iris came down from Oklahoma to pay $5,000 to go to a 14-week tattoo school. And then she
Mm.
came to me wanting a job. And one of the things with her, I'm at the point, like, I'm not even going to talk to anybody new. You're going to pass through my staff first
Right.
and my wife and everything before I'm even going to sit down with you. I just learned that. And I mean, my time is so valuable in what we do when we get to this level, you just don't have time to be wasting with things that may or may not, I want the for sure when it comes to me, or I don't want to be a part of it at all. And so they were in the interview with my third one, and she came in and she said, Lita, I think you should, just my wife, she's like, I really think you should come out here and meet this girl. I'm telling you, you got to come meet this girl. So I went out. Sure enough, she won me over, and she just had all the right things to say. I even said to her, I was like, where have you been reading? What have you been doing? Because you're literally sitting here with all the right things to say. Where did that come from? And she's just a go-getter, has a lot of drive, big personality. And so I said, you're going to go through this whole process like the others. I mean, you got to do a weekend. If everybody likes you, you'll come back for a couple of weeks. If we like you at that, then you'll come back for a 2-month trial. And hopefully you won't leave at the end of that 2-month trial, but that leaves me an out. If I don't like you, I still have one more chance to get rid of you.
Yeah.
And I really base it on the team. The team has to commit anything. Anyway, trying to shorten it up a little bit, that's how she came in, and I charged her $5,000 and made her start all over again.
Yeah. Good. That's
Yeah.
very good. Yeah, because it's kind of a new commitment. And I will say
You
that, go ahead, I'm sorry.
you got to me, you have to come in to the industry that way. You have to have some sort of commitment to it. I think if you come in and you don't pay an apprenticeship fee, you don't have any value to what you're
Mhm.
receiving.
Yep. Yeah, so part of the seminars that I did at Paradise was a freebie on how to be a good apprenticeship prospect. And
Hmm.
I kind of, you know, gave some tips, but at the end, one of the questions I got was from a guy who is out in Portland, and they have tattoo schools out there. And he
Hmm.
said, they're kind of churning them out quite a bit, and it's very
Hmm.
saturated. And he said, these people are paying for education, and then it's really hard for them to get work, and
Yeah.
they don't really know what they should know too. And so I think that it's kind of good to do that, because with the seriousness of this profession, it's much like, I would equivocate it in a lot of ways to parts of the medical profession, where you have to do practicals, and you have to, like, there's
Hmm.
levels to your education. um
Hmm.
and I think that gives it a nice level. Is like, okay, well, you paid for like this foundational education, now you have to do this level of it. And if
Hmm.
you finish that portion of it, then you can come in and be full ranking artist, here. But I
Hmm.
think that gives it away. What I told him was, in their atmosphere, and it sounds like in that atmosphere too, in Tennessee, where you have a tattoo school, it would be nice if, I said, the government's already involved, bureaucracy is already involved in that. So for me, it would be really nice if they offered shop owners like a stipend to take on artists,
Hmm.
um that come out of these schools as prospects from them, above somebody off the street, perhaps, like reward you guys for taking on their students. And I don't know if you have anything to add about that, but that was the only thing I could offer him.
I I do have something to add. So I'm not in Tennessee anymore. I'm in Florida.
Right.
And down here we have the issue of the schools popping up, and there's
Mm-hmm.
one literally just right up the street. I know the guy personally, and it's such a shit show operation with how they're doing it. He's not even a licensed artist.
Oh my
He's just
God.
right.
My
Let's start a
Lord.
tattoo school. I don't know anything about it. Sounds
Yeah.
sounds like me opening my first shop. Why not?
Yeah.
And but he opened this, and when he first started doing it in his first few rounds, I know the numbers were the first one he did 14 weeks. He had 12 students, $5,000 a piece.
Wow. That's
Do
a
the
hell of
math
a,
on that.
wow. That's a lot of money and not a lot of time.
And his educators are just artists. He's just hiring in off the street that need a job. And that's like one of his incentives. Oh, you come work for me and I'll make you this educator and get you involved in my tattoo school. So he's snowballing the other artists that are coming in. So they're literally, and I know because I've got one in my studio right now because she had all the right words to say to convince me. And another thing too with my apprenticeships, there are 2 years. I don't do 1 year apprenticeships. It's 2 years.
Right.
Um, but yeah, that's what they're doing here. And there's another one that's popped up, and somehow, I don't know how they're getting it state approved. Like the state is like okay with this. If you want to come work for me, you got to do at least a year apprenticeship. But if you want to go to the school for 14 weeks and pay the same amount, 14 weeks versus 2 years, we have so many kids that are taking the fast wagon to try to get where they want to be, this rock star, tattoo artist. And I guarantee every 3 months, I have a flood of artists contacting my studio trying to want the job. And it's very disheartening. But one of the things that I've noticed, so our local suppliers, Kingpin Tattoo Supply is a big one. Lucky's Tattoo Supply is another one and stuff. They won't sell to them at all if that's
Right.
where they've come out of. Like they've locked down, you're not real artists, you're not going to buy our product. So you're seeing them on Amazon and eBay, getting all their stuff that they need. But
Mm.
I think on that note, one thing that I'm starting to do or want to start to do is um, offer extended courses. Like I don't want you working in my shop with a 14 with a 14-week certification. But oh
I
my
love
God,
that.
you know.
Babe, babe,
I didn't
refreshment.
want to say anything. Stop
No,
it.
it's great.
But she's in there getting it right now. So
That's awesome.
you didn't get to meet her.
No, I
You didn't get to
didn't.
meet my wife. You want to pop in real quick and
No,
say hi?
no.
Yeah,
Let her
This is
see your
all you
beautiful
right now.
face.
I know.
Hi.
Hello, nice to meet you. I mean, you're part of the crew as far as I'm concerned.
She said you're part of the crew as far as she's concerned. I've got you on my earbuds, so she
Right.
can't hear what you're saying.
Oh,
But anyway, that's my sweetheart.
I love it.
Yes, she's the stick figure goddess. So side note on that, I come up to Paradise, set up the booth space and everything,
Wait.
right?
Did you say Brian?
She is the brains of the operation. Um,
Gotta have them.
I put so we've created this whole thing with her. Her motto is crooked lines, start to finish. She doesn't know how to fucking tattoo, and she only tattoos with a coil machine, and she has to be drinking the whole time. It's really a fun ordeal. You would have to come in on that, but it's an experience. I mean, I can work 80 hours on a sleeve and they'll get a stick figure and like that so much more than a sleeve tattoo,
Amazing.
yeah, it is. It's the dumbest ones that make everyone happy.
It's true. It's very, very true. It's hilarious. I
It's
love that
thank you.
too.
It's a
Well,
good balance to the studio with what we do because we do deal with a lot of emotion out of the shop, and she comes in like a fireball, and the next thing I know, people are leaving with stick figure tattoos. That's a
it's
beautiful thing.
it's a nod to the empowerment too, because whenever people meet you as an artist, they're like, "Oh, I can't draw a stick figure," and she's like, "Yes, you can. Yes, you can, because I do, and that's what I do, and I permanently affix them to people."
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. Now she'll draw it and put the stencil on. It may not look like that when it's done, but yeah,
That
they
gives it
still look like a
character.
stick at the end of the day.
That was the point. Like it's successful all the way around, and that's the thing, right? Like, part of the thing that in all of this that people don't realize is that whatever we do in any art that you look at and you admire, you go, wow, they're so amazing. Well, it was just little efforts consistently that did that, and if
Yeah.
you will that to happen on a consistent level, you can. So when people say things like, "Oh, I couldn't even draw a stick figure," I'd be like, "You'd be amazed what you can do, actually."
Yeah.
You definitely can draw a
Yeah.
stick figure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now
You
it's the
can.
I can't even draw a straight line that I'm like, dude, who the hell can draw a straight line? Like that's hard.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you're actually, let's talk about that. That's a
Yeah.
hard one. Like
That is one of the greatest features of using the iPad.
right? I know, right?
Straight line.
Well, and in tattoo land, at least with coils, a nice thing that just for our audience sake, one of the things, it's kind of like a good blade. You want the tang and the blade to weigh the same, and that gives you the stability in the cut. If you're wielding a blade or things like that, the same thing with a tattoo machine. If it's a coil, you want the front end to match the back end, and that pressure downwards really helps you kind of pull that straight line. So it's a lot different than doing it with a pen, and on a freaking iPad too. It's ridiculous because if you don't get matte screen like covers and stuff, the thing's so slick that you can't, like, you get like every wiggle shows.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Okay, diary listeners, that's the end of this week. I want you guys to know it's pretty difficult to find a good place to cut these diary entries up because the whole conversation is great. So I really implore you guys to come back next week for part 2. Lita is such an awesome lady, very rare, and her experience is just incredible. And what I really like about her time is that she's very understanding of the regulations. She has multiple states that she can actually speak from because she's worked in multiple states. And she's just a wealth of knowledge. And like she and I kind of admitted to each other by the end, we could have kept talking like for hours after. It was just such a fun conversation. She's a really beautiful lady. And I hope that you guys will take the time in between now and then to follow her wherever you can. She's Artist Lita on IG, and she also has a page specifically for her work in scar recovery. Boobs _ tattoos. Boobs and Tattoos. So make sure to follow her wherever you can. She does amazing work, is a beautiful human. As always, diary listeners, thank you. Lita, thank you so much. And this happens to be for those who celebrate the first day of Hanukkah. So happy Hanukkah for all of you that practice. For all of us, I'm wishing everyone a very happy holiday season. Bless you all, and we hope to see you and hear you. Well, hear you. Be with you next week. Bye.
Thanks for listening. You can find the Apprenticeship Diaries on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Our IG is _apprenticeship_diary. If you would like to offer constructive criticism or an interview, drop us an email at theapprenticeshipdiaries@gmail.com. We look forward to hearing from our listeners.